listening to Movie Reviews and More with Brian Sebastian, only on LA Talk Radio.
All right, here we are. It is September 12th, after September 11th, obviously. There's been a lot of things going on in the world. I'm Brian Sebastian, Movie Reviews and More, and we are live around the world as usual. Hello out there, Denmark, the UK, Germany, Sweden, South Africa now, which is great. And in guest, I've been waiting for this show for a long time, exactly 2 months. We have our co-host, Zorianna Kit. Go ahead, say hi, Zorianna.
Hi, how are you?
And she gets to introduce herself this time. Tell them who you are.
My name is Zorianna Kit, and I'm the media director at Sea Shepherd Conservation Society. I also co-run the production division, so we're developing lots of exciting television shows and movies as well that carry the Sea Shepherd brand. And I'm also a member of the Broadcast Film Critics Association, so I can't wait to talk to you about one of the weekend's biggest films. It's a horror film, and it's based on a Stephen King novel, and it's called It.
And we got David Perez. David and I go back a little ways. David, tell them about yourself.
David Perez, CEO of Omega International Group, Inc. We're a private security firm based in Beverly Hills, California, specializing in personal protection, investigations, and consulting and training.
I like to tell everybody to actually introduce themselves. This is your time to shine, so it's different, but I like to do it this way. And all the way from Denmark, and we planned this exactly 2 months ago, and here she is.
Hi, my name is Kirsten Maxine Albright. I'm from the UK and Denmark. I'm an author, and I've written Relationships in a Nutshell.
All right, let's get down to this. All right, this is the great day. There's a lot of things going on. It's also Emmy week, obviously. Mm-hmm. Everybody's busy doing all kinds of things out there, and it's a lot of travel, and especially all the stuff that's going on in Florida, Houston, even overseas. It's unfortunate. So I definitely, I've been seeing a lot of prayers for people, my friends in Florida, Georgia, and Houston. So, but anyhow, let's start off with you because you've come a long way to be here. You wrote this book that I've been promoting for the last 2 months, Relationships in a Nutshell, a book for guys, which it is. And it's a really, really good read. Talk about why you wrote this.
I wrote the book because I thought it was needed, Brian. I've got 4 boys. They're all grown-up boys now. They've got, a couple of them have families of their own. And I could see that I wasn't good enough at explaining the softer parts of relationships to them. I then I've searched the internet, tried to find things, and if you find anything for guys, it's normally huge books about stuff that they would just get lost in. So what I've tried to do, I've tried to simplify things, make it an easy read book, so straight to the point. It's only less than 60 pages with some drawings in there as well.
So you've dumbed it down, essentially.
Exactly, yeah.
Dumbed it down for the guys.
And a lot of people ask, why have you written it for guys and not girls? And I said, there's so much out there for girls already, and they're pretty good at it. But what the problem I'm having is 2 problems I've got. 1, for the guys to buy it, and 2, for them to get them to read it. So I've changed my ideas now, and now I'm speaking to mums and girlfriends, well, parents and girlfriends, to try and get them to convince them to buy this book for either their sons or their boyfriends, because it's a real important issue, and that is understanding the differences between girls and boys in a positive way, rather than the negative way that we seem to have around us.
And this is your first time writing a book, too. It wasn't easy doing, was it?
No. I rewrote it 3 times, so it took a while.
And you mentioned that your family, out of anybody, they thought you would be the last person to write a book, right?
Not just my family, also my old school friends and people that know me. If you'd asked them 3 years ago, do you think Kirsten Maxine Albright would be an author, they'd say, hell no, she's the last person. I mean, I'm a high school dropout. So,
as parents, what are you looking for? Because getting into your world, this stuff is important. You understand.
Well, I have 2 daughters. I don't have a son, but my older one is 14. So, maybe I should be telling the moms of her 8th grade classmates to be buying this book, because otherwise no one's getting near my kids.
No. And it is, even though it's for guys, it's indirectly for girls, isn't it? Because it's for for couples to be able to understand each other better.
Yeah.
That's my goal.
And David, talk about your business, because without you guys, there's so much stuff going on in the world, obviously. That's not good. But there's 3 elements that I really like. You're really pitching things with your 5-diamond service protection, which is most important. Really singling out women, and then talking about having the inspections, so home inspections during the home. You mentioned to me a couple years ago, but there's a lot of CEOs, prominent women out there, that when they come home at night, that's the last place that they think of that they may be safe. And
Correct.
You've talked about that on those home invasions, and then going in and actually inspecting the homes with a fire marshal.
Yes. One of our services that we do under consulting and training is the vulnerability assessments at homes. So what we do is we go into your house, we'll walk around the property daytime and nighttime to see what the lighting looks like. Is there fencing? Is there, when you walk up to the door, is it a glass door? Can you see inside? A lot of clients sometimes have glass doors. You can walk right up. You can see inside. They're watching TV. Or if they're not home, you can see awards on the wall, so they're possibly in the entertainment industry. They probably have a lot of high valuable items inside. So what we do is basically we go down there, look at where your blind spots are, how can you improve your safety. And so when you go home, everybody's home is their castle. We want to feel safe in our homes, and without someone walking out there to say, hey, look, from a home invasion side, but also a fire life safety. Do you have your smoke detectors? Do you have fire extinguishers? Do you know how to shut off the gas? So we go in there and do a very comprehensive vulnerability assessment to make sure that the family is safe.
A fire extinguisher that works to extinguish fire, or to use as a weapon in case you have someone coming in to just hit him over the head with.
Exactly. And a lot of times clients ask us that, hey, we're not big on firearms. What do we do? And I always tell people, if you not everybody wants to own a firearm. There's a lot of responsibility in that. It's just to go down to Big 5 and buy a baseball bat. Baseball bat works very well, and strategically place them in your home.
What are some of the basic no-brainer rules that everyone, regardless of if they need protection or not, should do to stay safe in their home?
Just be aware of your surroundings as well. When you're in your home, there's certain noises that we kind of key up on, what's going on outside, if your dog's barking, if you don't have dogs, what's the sounds that are going on outside. And just a big thing that we do as part of the assessment is, do you know your neighbors? 70% of the people living here locally don't know their neighbors. Don't know the first name, don't know the last name, never even talk to them. Yep. So part of the assessment is to bring your community a little bit more together, and so your neighbors can look out for each other, and you can actually look out for your neighbors as well, because it's a community, and it's not living by yourself on the block and you have no other resources. Your community is the resource. Let's
give the audience just a little bit of your background too. So you worked in 2 governments, obviously, 2 administrations.
Yes, I started my career early on in the United States Marine Corps. I was blessed to get to work in the White House under President Clinton and worked his security for his inauguration, and that's when I really developed a passion for protecting people. It was such an overwhelming experience at the age of 21 to be stationed in D.C., to be part of this something that's really big, the biggest office probably in the world. And, when I left the Marine Corps, I worked for several large firms and continue that passion, and then ended up going to USC at graduate school and learning the business side of it. And 13 years later, our company is still going.
And you worked at the Pentagon too.
Yes.
The secrets that you know. It's interesting.
When you say the business side, you mean a business side of owning a company, or just is there a business side to the actual work?
Yes, because part of our industry is the kind of blanket is everybody has military and law enforcement background. That may make you an expert in the operations side of things, but there's also a business side of things. Contracts, how to go out and network, how to talk to people, how to present yourself, how to build your brand. Unfortunately, a lot of companies don't think that way, but there's a bigger side of business in building your brand, and if you don't have the proper education, you may probably get to a ceiling where you're not really growing. So having that, further education is very important to us.
Got it.
What would you say? Kirsten's here, obviously, from another country. So I've always remember in Florida when they were having a lot of tourists being killed. I was always concerned about that. Even when I'm in Hollywood, I always want to make sure that the tourists are coming here, they're, putting money into the economy here, I always want to make sure that they have a good experience. So I'd like to go out of my way and say, do you guys need help? I know it's strange for them sometimes to like a black guy coming and helping them, but that's how I look at it, because I know what it's like to travel outside the U.S. and be lost by yourself. So I think it's always right to do that. What advice would you give Kirsten being here by herself? What to look out for?
Yeah, well, before you go to the country, any country or any big city in a different country, is look online, look at what people are posting, what they're saying, what's the fun things to do, and what are some of the things to look out for. And then, of course, if you can have some type of local contact where you have maybe an extended friend that lives out here that can show you around, there's some great places to go that are relatively safe, and there's some places you probably wouldn't want to go that are not safe, just as in any city around the world. So just having the awareness, doing a little bit of your homework, and it's a pretty safe town for the most part.
Thank you.
What else has been going on with you, Sea Shepherd?
Yeah, well, Sea Shepherd, as I've been on the show several times before, we defend, conserve, and protect the ocean and the wildlife in the ocean. But this week we're doing something a little bit different because of the hurricanes that have ravaged Florida and the Caribbean islands, Cuba. We have a ship that has been stationed in Florida. It's called the John Paul DeJoria, and it's named after the billionaire founder of Patron and John Paul Mitchell Hair Care, John Paul DeJoria. And this boat has been stationed in Miami, and we were anticipating the hurricane, so we moved it to Cancun. So luckily, our boat is okay, but we just saw everyone around us not being okay. And we have a special affinity with the island of Saint Martin. It's Dutch owned, and we've got a great relationship with the Dutch. We've had our ships registered through them. Their postcode lottery has helped finance some of our campaigns and some of our ships. So we are going to do some relief work, and we're sending the JPD on Saturday to Saint Martin to provide relief. And the government has told us what they need. I mean, they need things like diapers and baby wipes and supplies like that. And we're also bringing lots of dog food and cat food for the animals that were left abandoned and homeless. So the ship is actually going to Curacao, where it's going to pick up the relief supplies, and then it's going to go to Saint Martin. So we actually have a donation page set up for this relief fund. So if anyone wants to help and contribute, you can go to seashepherd.org. There's a red button called Donate. You click on that. You donate whatever you can. In the comment section, you could put relief for Saint Martin, so we can earmark that and help us provide relief to all the people of that island, because it has been ravaged, damaged. There's nothing left practically.
I couldn't begin to know what that would be like, to be without a home, or to not have anything, or none of your possessions left. It's just devastating.
I've been through that stuff. It's not fun. I've had a fire inside, when I was a disc jockey, and when I moved here, matter of fact, I was on a gig, and all of a sudden it was an electrical fire. You don't think of these things. And all the stuff, it was only in the apartment, and my apartment burned up. Nobody saw anything. So if it weren't for the college kids that could see in, they called the fire department. And then I come home at 3:30 in the morning. I'm like, what is that? It's not the door off the hinges? Why is it black? And the fire extinguisher didn't work. It was outside the door. That's trippy. So that's when I learned that. And I've been in a flood. So we had a freshwater brook. So in Connecticut, when it snowed, the water would rise up. And we lived in a beautiful higher upper middle class place, so we were the only 3 black families in the entire state, town of East Lyme, Connecticut, of 7,000. So that was weird. You move into a place, and I remember my mom, and I always remember this. She looked at the brook in the back to the real estate agent. She goes, "Do we need flood insurance?" They go, "Oh, you don't need that." 6 months later, it flooded. Not once, 3 times. So I don't have any photos of me as a kid.
Oh, wow.
None. I have none of that stuff. No high school yearbook, none of that stuff because of a flood. So my heart goes out to all those people in Houston and Florida, because I know what that's like. And this was a freshwater brook. So if you think of the walls, the stuff in our house was beautiful wooden. It's waterlogged. The mold is growing inside. And then if you can imagine this, we rolled up the wall-to-wall carpeting. We took it to the cleaners because we had only been in the house in 6 months. Can you imagine taking wall-to-wall carpet to the cleaners and having it dry cleaned? We did that. So I get it. Tell us a little bit about your background, because your background is fascinating. I always, when I'm talking about you, I go back to the age of 13 with you.
What?
Yeah.
You guys have known each other since you were 13?
No. On her book, it's the age of 13 is something that was relevant with her, which kind of led to her writing her book. Tell them what happened.
Well, I was alone. I used to live alone with my father, and my father wasn't maybe a very good father in the sense that he used to go to the pub every night and leave me. So at a very early age, about 11, I used to be left on my own accord. So I used to hang out with guys that were older than me. I was actually having sex probably when I was around 11, 12 years old. I didn't really even know what it was back then, but I was looking for love, and guys of 14, 15 and 16 were looking for something else. And when I was 13, I got introduced to a guy that was 38.
But you thought he was 28.
Yes, and I ended up having a relationship with him, and today he's in jail for not what he did to me, but what he's done to other girls. And
He's a pedophile.
yeah, and I was in a relationship with him for nearly 2 years. And I think the reasons for my book is not just because of that episode, it's many different reasons, but boys need to understand some things about respect for girls, about the differences, about girls are different, we're more emotional, we have much more, our feelings are much more, we're much more in touch with our feelings, where boys, they can let go of things much easier, they don't ask as many questions. And I think the respect of girls, I write that in my book as well. You know, if you're out and you're with a girl and she gets really drunk, don't take advantage of her. Take her home, make sure she gets home safe, and she'll probably love you for it. Or if nothing else, if you really like her, you know, if she doesn't want to be your girlfriend, you'll have a good friend there for sure if you look after her.
Yes, I remember. I'll never forget the classmate who held my ponytail when I was not doing too well one night in high school. You always remember the one that pulls your hair back and holds it as you're hanging over the toilet.
But there's a chapter in there on communications and first dates. Now, anybody who knows me knows I hate dating, especially here in Los Angeles. It's like you might as well live on planet Mars, because it's not dating in the Mideast or the Midwest.
My Zumba teacher said to me yesterday, he said, dating in LA is non-existent.
It's true.
And there was many of us, so I didn't actually get to ask him, but next time I'm going to Zumba, I'm going to ask him, what do you actually mean by that?
Exactly.
Yeah, I want to know what that means.
Yeah.
Does that mean you just text and swipe left or swipe right?
Well, that's what they're doing these days. You know, again, that's why I liked it, because of the Rita stuff. There was stuff I'm like, oh yeah, I remember this, but you know, you're not out there. You don't get a chance to hear a lot of the stuff.
And plus, you don't have. I mean, I one of my boys, for example,
and you have 4.
Yeah, I have 4. One of them, he can't hear the word sex while I'm around. If there's anything going on telly, or if I say anything about it, you could just see he's sitting there, he's cringing, he's really uncomfortable with it. And so it can also be very difficult to actually, where do you get that information from? How do you know? How do you understand the differences? I think we spoke about it before, where I mentioned about sometimes fathers have to really think about what they say and how they approach girls and females and their own wives. So if they sometimes get a bit annoyed about their wife maybe wanting to rearrange the furniture for the 3rd time that year, or nagging about something, or just something that annoys him, be really careful about what signals you're giving to your son, because it's all about accepting and understanding. And when people ask me, well, what actually makes a good relationship? I say, well, I believe there's 3 ingredients, and that is communication, honesty, and trust. And if you have those 3, you can have a good relationship, because you can talk about anything. And if you trust somebody, you will be able to show your vulnerability and actually explain things if there's something you don't like, if there's something you're not happy with. And the same with guys. You know, it's very important for guys to be able to say to their wives, I'm tired of you sitting 2 hours getting ready to putting your makeup on and stuff. If I'm saying we're leaving at 8 o'clock, I want you ready by 8 o'clock, you know, and I don't want it to take the whole afternoon. That there needs to be some kind of, we need to be able to negotiate, and I'm guessing that's something you're probably really good at, negotiation, because again, if you get into situations where you're talking to people about their safety and what have you, there'll always be this sort of thing about how to negotiate. I was going to ask you, one of my questions was, what advice do you have to people if they actually experience a home invasion? Because then it must be something about negotiation, isn't it?
Well, negotiating with the bad guy you're talking about?
Yeah, if somebody knocks on the door and either you don't open it or they get in somehow.
Well, there's no negotiation. If someone comes through your door, you need to defend yourself, and if that means protect your life, and if someone comes through my house, there's no negotiation.
No.
There is no negotiation. You come through my house, you're gonna get hurt.
Okay. But if I'm a woman and there's two guys that get into, I'm not going to be able to do much.
Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously, if they want to take something and take your money, take your property, obviously you want to go ahead and give that up because your life is not replaceable. Everything in your house is.
Yeah.
And so.
And would most be, out of your experience, would that be enough? Do you think if you said, look, take whatever you want?
Yeah.
Just
according to the FBI statistics, is if you're home during a home invasion, 80% are assaulted. So if you happen to be home and there's a home invasion, you're going to be assaulted in some shape or form.
Oh, wow.
So that's
scary.
why you have to be prepared before this happens. That's why we talk about vulnerability assessments, looking at how you can better defend your house. And again, if you don't own a firearm, own a baseball bat, and the minute that something's going wrong with your door, call 911, and if that person comes to the door, you have the advantage for a moment because they don't know your house.
Yeah.
You know your house. And hiding behind a corner with a baseball bat and clobbering over the head is going to slow them down quite a bit. So,
what about running to the toilet and locking the door and then with your phone calling 911?
Yeah, you can do that too. I mean, there should be a place in your home where, again, if a bad person comes in your house, more than likely they're not going to know your home as good as you.
No.
So if you have a pre-thought, if this does happen to me, where can I run? Can I run in the closet? Can I run somewhere where they're not going to find me?
So I guess a good advice would be make sure you've got a lock that works on your
and have
laboratory.
a plan A, B, and C just in case.
Yeah.
Always have a
I
backup
saw that
plan.
film with, was it Jodie Foster?
Panic Room?
Oh my
Yes.
God, that was scary. Did you see that film?
Yes.
Give your website for your book.
It's in_a_nutshell.me.
Okay. This is why I always ask people 3 and 4 times on their websites. Dave.
Look us up, omegaint.us, or just Google Omega International Group, Inc.
Zorianna.
SeaShepherd.org.
Movies. You went to go see it this weekend.
Oh, yes, I did.
Look at that smile. I love that.
I did. You know, I have a love-hate relationship with the horror genre because I keep going to see what will scare me. Normally, I'm not scared, so I'm frustrated and disappointed because I want to get the bejesus scared out of me. You know, so like a film like The Conjuring. I mean, I screamed so much in that movie. But most of the time, like, you can see it coming and, you know, all that stuff.
I got to tell you,
it's
I was actually
predictable.
scared on the second one.
So I always challenge myself. So I went to see it, and I enjoyed it very much. But it to me, it wasn't your typical horror movie. It had this spirit of adventure to it, almost like Goonies. Do you remember Goonies? A bunch of kids go on this adventure to find treasure, and so they get stuck in caves, and there's bad guys and all this stuff. So usually in a horror movie, it's just a bunch of people getting picked off one by one, and, you know, one person left at the end. But
The black guy's usually the first one to go, too.
well, the black guy in this one doesn't go at all. So
And he's
I can
my
tell
friend.
you that. So here, in this movie, it's about the same kind of group of kids who have been together forever, and it's summer, and they're on their bikes, and they go on this adventure, except it's a horror adventure. So that, to me, already had a twist already. And it's set in the 80s. And I really feel like we're having this 80s revival with shows like the one on Netflix, Stranger Things, set in the 80s. All things 80s are coming back again. Anything that was popular is now being remade on Netflix, such as Full House, Boy Meets World, all that stuff. It's all coming back. So there is this 80s revival. But it dawned on me that there's actually a cinematic choice to shooting a film that's actually set in the 80s. And that is no cell phones, no computers. Because in today's day and age, a phone call or a Google search solves the plot line immediately. You're in trouble, you call 911. Okay, well, that's not cinematic. How are you going to shoot that? Oh, you got to look up a bad guy. You just Google his name and you find out his police records or all that stuff. About that. Yeah, so I mean, again, it solves everything too quickly. There's nothing cinematic. But when it's set in the 80s and you don't have phones and you don't have computers, then when you go in that haunted house to look for that clown, you can't call your parents. You can't call 911. You can't text anyone. Right. So it removes a whole element where you actually can sit and relax and enjoy the scares without feeling like, well, that wouldn't happen because they would just call 911. Or, okay, they're in the woods, and of course the signal cuts out and no one has their cell phone reception. So in this sense, having it set in a time period where those things don't exist really lets you focus on the characters and on the action, and that's what this movie had, and that's one of the reasons I think audiences are responding to it, because everything plays out, and that's what made it so good to me, anyways.
And that was a good thing. David, what are you seeing on Netflix these days? Because when you get back home, we were talking about this earlier, you kind of need to wind down. You watch movies over and over again, don't you?
Yes. Currently watching Narcos. Obviously on HBO, Ballers.
Yep. We love Ballers.
Yeah. Do you watch your clients' work if your clients are celebrities?
Sometimes, yes.
Basically, like you're more interested in the actual film that they'd be doing, not because it's them in it, correct?
Exactly. Yeah. To see if it was any good.
Yeah. But you'd never tell them.
Exactly.
Well, I like the fact that you have some great clients that you can't even talk about, but they're great clients. I think that's interesting. Disney movies. We're on Disney movies. Sometimes you watch them.
Yes, I have 2 small children, so I have to be a fan of Disney.
Don't be ashamed to be a fan of Disney. Even if I didn't have kids, I'd be a fan of Disney.
Moana,
Come on, how great was
Moana maybe 100 times.
Oh,
Beauty and the Beast. My daughter's into Beauty and the Beast now, so she's into
Frozen.
Seen that 100 times. The Descendants now
Trolls.
she's into.
But
Trolls, yes.
Yeah, but I have to tell you, as someone who works at Sea Shepherd, I think watching a movie like Moana gave me such a different appreciation, because I was so touched at how ocean-centric it was and how much respect it taught the kids to have for the ocean.
Yes.
And I think if I wasn't if I wasn't in the activist movement protecting the ocean, I would have watched the film and enjoyed it, but I wouldn't have had that same sense of appreciation. And it made me love Disney even more for taking the time to do it in such a way where I felt like you could educate a new generation to have respect for the ocean.
I've just seen it about 15 times with my granddaughters, and she's 2.5, and she loves that film. And I agree with you, though, even though I'm not in that business, I could see it. I think it was a fantastic film. I loved the film. I think it's so good that it's about goodness in that film. I think it's so good for our kids to have that kind of film in their lives.
Exactly. Even like random, like, it's so random for her to have a chicken on the boat with her, right? Like you just don't associate like chicken with Hawaii even. No. That's just not, it doesn't go together. And the fact that this chicken, which, for most people is a meal at the end of the day, remains unscathed despite the numerous times it could have been eaten, and in some cases was eaten but then spit back up by somebody, but that chicken made it. And I thought that was great.
Because she looked after it, well, didn't she?
Yes,
she really,
and her pig too, although the pig wasn't at on the adventure with her.
Looking at movies from the outside the U.S., what is that like for you?
Pardon?
Looking at movies from the outside, coming from another country.
Well, I don't go to see a lot of movies, but one thing I've really been hooked on is Game of Thrones. Now, I don't watch telly a lot either, but I watched a few episodes with my youngest son and my ex-boyfriend, and they were in maybe season 1, and it was maybe the 5th or the 6th. I had to get them to start all over again and watch it from the beginning so I could. I was really, and I've been addicted. I've watched it from the beginning 3 times now.
And what do you love about it?
I love that it's unpredictable. The stuff that you expect will happen doesn't happen. The stuff you don't want to happen happens. Like not when Ned Stark got killed off. He got killed off quite early on. It was, oh, they can't do that. And then his son got killed and the wife got killed. It was just unbelievable. So, and I think it's really good the way they've shot it. And I think there's a lot of violence in there as well. And I'm not a fan of violence, but it's a good story, really good story.
Yeah. Well, no cell phones or computers in that one, too.
No.
Can you imagine?
Yeah, exactly.
But dragons.
Yes.
Fantastic dragons. And now one with blue eyes. So,
You know, there's, I don't know, yesterday obviously was 911. So I saw The Road to 911 on the History Channel, and an excellent thing. Starting in like 1983, these people were chasing, you know, Bin Laden back then because they just knew. So it's interesting when you hear put the whole stories, everything. The Clinton administration had a time to take him out, and then they really thought it was KSM, Khalik Sheikh Mohammed, who was really the mastermind behind all this stuff. Very interesting, and it just finished airing, but you can catch up to this stuff on the History Channel because I just love documentaries. I go nuts over them. I fall asleep to them, matter of fact, because they just calm me down. But it's called The Road to 911, excellent 3-part series. And then we got Ken Burns coming up. I've just finished seeing 5 episodes of Vietnam, the war in Vietnam, the complete story, and it's more from the Vietnamese side. Really, really interesting because, again, they've been fighting the French before that. Before that, they had the British. So when you go invade somebody else on their own turf, well, you kind of know what's going on. So by the time we start to come in 1957, right up until the 70s, they already knew. Like anybody now in Afghanistan, you just wait out the Americans. That's pretty much where it was. Where were you at 911?
I was working for AEG at the Staples Center. We had, doing security, we had Madonna that week.
Oh, wow.
And so we had a concert that night, the night before, and the next day was 9/11. I got a phone call. We got home about 3 in the morning. And I got a phone call about 8 a.m. The dispatcher from Staples Center said, a guy named Paul, I answered the phone, and he says, the Pentagon's been hit, the White House been hit, we need you here now, and he hung up. And I thought, that little SOB, he's calling it for a joke at this early in the morning, knowing we only had about 4 hours sleep. But I could hear our director, in that 4 seconds he said that, I could hear our director over the radio when he was on the phone. And our director at that time wouldn't have shown up till about 11 o'clock because we all got off so late. So I thought, wow, this must be pretty serious. This must be true. So I turned on the TV and I was flabbergasted. Then my phone started ringing.
Wow.
People were crying, calling me, oh my God, this is happening, we're being attacked, and it was a crazy day.
What does that do for you, for someone who was actually there and worked in both locations? What went through your head?
Well, and it's interesting because in 1993, when the Trade Center was first hit, I was stationed in Quantico, Virginia. It was hit once. You know, they didn't succeed, and
was that a bomb? Was that a
when the bomb went on
yeah,
on the parking structure.
Yeah.
So it was just it was terrible.
Wow.
And there was, you know.
I can tell you where I was. I was actually at work. I used to work for Scandinavian Airlines at the ticket desk in Copenhagen. And we watched it on the telly as it happened. And we were in disbelief. I mean, first, I think somebody said, is this like a prank? Is this something that's not? Because it just looked so surreal. When the second one happened, we were absolutely in shock. And then the airport, all the flights stopped, and then the airport started filling up. In the end, it was so difficult. We all stayed over we stayed the extra shift to help out, and all the Americans were coming up because they wanted to get home. Of course, they wanted to. And my dad, he was actually in America at that time. They were actually up in the air. They'd been to the towers the day before or the day before that, and they were on their way to Atlanta, I think, to some gambling place anyway, and they got diverted, and it was 3 or 4 days before I got in contact with my cousin, Jim. His name is James Albrecht. He was captain of a New York precinct police station, and I tried to call to try and figure out, because I couldn't get in touch with anybody, and I was really getting panicky. And this lady who I spoke to, she was just like a telephone switchboard lady. She'd done so much research and got hold of my cousin Jimmy. So Jimmy called me and said, look, I've heard from my dad and your dad, and they're fine and everything's all right. And my Jimmy, my cousin, he was actually the first policeman at the scene of 9/11.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you remember where you were?
Yeah, I was at the Toronto Film Festival. And I remember waking up and I checked my phone and I had so many messages, and like it was friends saying, don't worry, you'll be okay, and I was like, what is everyone talking about? And I turned on the TV and then I saw, I think, the second tower fall, and it was utter confusion. It was just utter confusion. I just remember the entire festival, everyone just looked aimlessly lost, and everything, all the films were canceled that evening, and nobody knew what to do. And then at night, everyone was in the Four Seasons bar, and some people really started to drink, and like blitzkrieg, just like it's getting a little out of control, and just everyone needed to just digest and process and talk about it. And as someone who is Canadian, and Toronto being a home city of mine, but having already lived and been a resident in the U.S., it was a very confusing and conflicting time for me, because my first instinct was, I want to go back to LA. Like, I want to go back to the States. And
that's interesting.
And well, my dogs were there. Like, I have a house, everything. And that's when I realized in that moment just how much I was part of the American fabric, of part of the society, because I wanted to go home, and home was there. And I felt, I felt a little trapped in Toronto myself, in a hotel room.
How long did it take you to get out?
Oh, listen, I was there covering the festival, so I wasn't going to leave till the festival ended regardless. So I was not affected by any of that stuff. But it was also very interesting to see the agents and studio heads around me who were getting their private jets to get them out.
I remember that.
And if they couldn't get a private jet, they were renting cars and driving cross country. I mean, people would not wait. Yeah. They would not wait. They wanted out. It really was chaotic. Yeah, very much so.
At the airport as well. All the Americans, they just wanted to get home.
Yeah.
That's funny, because I was in Sarasota the day before visiting my friend September 10th, and I was going to go back to Los Angeles first and then go to Toronto. And I'm like, I was tired. I was like, I'm tired. Let me just go home for a day first, and then I'll just get on a plane and then go the next day. And then I'm like, I don't feel like going. Let me go the next day. And then, but I was up because I was on East Coast time. And I'm a news junkie anyhow, so I'm watching Fox News at that point, and I'm like, what is this? I'm like, this is weird. And I was up at LA time at 5:34, 6, 7, 8. Yeah. I was up watching news already, and I'm like, this is bizarre. So the people who weren't in Toronto, Telluride and Venice, I was like, wow, does anybody know what's going on? So I started calling my friends automatically because I was up. They're like, what are you doing up? I'm like, didn't you turn on the news? Or don't you know what's going on? What are you talking about? And one of my friends, it was his birthday. It's 9/11. Oh, no. He goes, it's a great day for my birthday. I'm like, no, it's not. You haven't seen the news yet, have you? He goes, what are you talking about? We've just been attacked.
Yeah, there was a strange feeling of having the rug pulled under you, and I think everyone felt vulnerable for the first time, like really vulnerable. Yeah. You just kind of didn't know where to plant your foot because you didn't know if something else was going to happen. And that vulnerability, that unsettling feeling was horrible. But mind you, there's so many countries that live with that feeling every single day of
there
their
are.
lives, and we are the lucky ones that in America that's not part of our lives on a daily basis, but when it does happen, it really throws us for a loop.
Talk about why people should buy your book. Why is that important?
Well, for themselves, really, to have a good relationship. I think there's so many people that separate or get divorced nowadays. And one thing I've noticed here in America, if you marry somebody, even if you get divorced, you're married for life. So it's about picking the right partner. It's about being aware. Don't feel pressurized. If your girlfriend's saying put a ring on it, just say no. Just say, if you're not ready, don't do it. It could be your parents saying, look, you're getting on to 30 years old, you got to get married, you got to have kids. Don't feel pressurized. If you're not ready, then it's because you're not ready.
If there's a gut instinct, listen to it.
And chances are, if you feel pressurized and you go with it, you'll make a mistake. So, and it's about understanding.
And where can they get it?
They can get it on Amazon.
Yep.
And they can get it on the website I gave, which was www.in-a-nutshell.me. And they can find me as well, Maxine Albright. I've got a website. They Google me, they'll find me somewhere, and then they can find my book.
David.
I'd love to hear from anybody as well.
5 Diamond. Talk about how you got that, because you don't hear it.
No, what we looked at that was missing in the industry was we heard from a lot of clients was security was too rigid. They weren't friendly. Instead of feeling safe and comfortable, they felt a little bit uneasy with security around. So when we started the business, I thought, how can we change that? What's missing? The customer service side. When I worked for different firms before I started our company, we were never given a class on customer service. It was always, hey, go out there, protect the client, keep the client, and that was it. So I thought, wow, this is a big gap. There's a hole here. How do we make our company better? So we reached out to companies like the Bellagio, L'Hermitage locally, and we said, hey, you guys are a 5 Diamond rated company. How do you keep your clients comfortable? How do you keep them? How do you anticipate their needs? What do you guys do? Teach us what you do. And it wasn't just one thing. It was a lot of little things. So I thought, we're going to incorporate that into our company, and I sell that quite a bit. People ask, what's your differentiator? It's the high level of customer service that we provide. It's because, again, all security companies have military and law enforcement background. That's not a differentiator. We all have that same background and training. It's that little touch, and especially in this town, in Beverly Hills, everybody wants to be treated well. So when our staff goes to either protect somebody, whether it's a high threat, low threat, or it's just an event, we still remind them, put on those white gloves, put on a smile, make people feel safe, and make them feel comfortable.
And your website?
OmegaINT.us or Google Omega International Group.
And you have a lot of women, too.
Yes,
right?
we have female agents that work for us. They bring a different tone and an attitude, and they can actually be a very soft way of doing security. And at times, clients do ask for females, depending on the cultural differences. When we deal with a lot of Middle Easterns that come into town, culturally we're not allowed to talk to the wives or to the children. So the females that we hire have to deal with them, take them shopping, and protect them in a different way, but still keeping them safe.
Wow. Can you say how many employees you have?
Sure, we're about close to 70.
Oh, wow.
Sea Shepherd coming up, and things personally coming up for you.
SeaShepherd.org is where you should go if you want to check out any of our campaigns. We are about to embark in a couple of months on a campaign in the Sea of Cortez, otherwise known as the Gulf of California. It'll start November 1st, and it is called Operation Milagro. This will be our 4th time there, and it is to save the endangered vaquita porpoise. It is the world's smallest marine mammal, and it is the most endangered marine mammal. There are less than 30 left. So the numbers are dwindling, so we're going back there to try to keep those numbers from not falling further than the statistics are saying that it is. So again, if you wanted to donate to that campaign or find out a little bit more, you can go to SeaShepherd.org, click the donate button, and do that. But we have a navy of about a dozen ships around the world, from Africa to Australia to New Zealand to France to Italy, Canada. So if anyone out there would like to volunteer as well, we are a volunteer-based organization. Other than the captain and the engineer, we have volunteers from all over the world who come on our ships. And those are the best types of crew members to have because they're there for the passion. They're not unionized. They're not going to say, well, I can't save that poor vaquita porpoise today. My union says I get an hour break right now. Sorry. So you do get the most passionate individuals. They're there because they care. Yeah. So, yeah.
And what movies you look forward to seeing coming up? We've got about 90 seconds.
Well, Blade Runner. Blade Runner's coming up. Still waiting. I'm just can't wait for that. Can't wait for that. Harrison Ford, Ryan Gosling, what a great pairing. And I'm just curious to see how Denis Villeneuve has updated it. I'm a huge fan of his work. Loved Arrival, loved Sicario, loved Prisoners. So I think it's going to be a great one.
Any picks for Emmys for you?
Gosh, the Creative Arts Emmys were on this weekend, and a lot of my favorites won already. I am a big fan of Stranger Things. I must be on this 80s revival kick because between it and Stranger Things, I'm really digging the whole nostalgia thing. Maybe I'm hearkening back to a more innocent time myself.
Probably.
Yeah, exactly, because maybe I just shouldn't be using my cell phone these days either. There's too much information coming too fast at me. I need to slow things down. So yeah, Stranger Things, that's the show that I hope will see a lot of recognition.
David, last words on anything for Omega?
No, well, we're doing big things. We're working with the NFL locally to make sure that the NFL is up to par and keeping people safe when they go to a Charger game. So we're looking forward to doing that.
And one more time, you can never mention your websites enough.
OmegaNT.us or Google Omega International Group, Inc.
And Kirsten, what do you want people to really know about this book?
That it's really important for them to read it. It's really important for them to get an understanding of the opposite sex, to have a good relationship. And I can't express it enough. And I'm so passionate about it. I'm writing my second book. That should be out probably about February. And that's about keeping the momentum going when you are in a relationship, because things tend to slow down a little bit and it's difficult to have passion and security coexisting in a relationship. So that's my second book, so watch out for it.
Also, one real quick thing on Disney. Disney's going to their own streaming site in 2019. Any thoughts on that?
Well, that just goes to show you how confident they are in themselves and their product to
taking their stuff off of Netflix.
Yeah, to go solo that way. So good for them. Yeah, good for them. I mean, listen, they've got the Pixar brands, they've got the Marvel brand, and now they have the Star Wars brand. So just those three alone, plus their entire princesses, and each one of those have various incarnations from live action versions that are so popular nowadays to the classic animated ones. So I'm sure the content is there. So why not?
I want to thank everybody for being here. Kirsten, David, Zorianna, obviously, because I love your energy. I'm Brian Sebastian. This is Movie Reviews and More. Check out www.youtube.com/movie reviews, the letter N more. Thank you, Tree Sisters. We have Tree Sisters. Claire, they look forward to seeing you really soon. Claire Dubois. Santa Clara Vanguard 50th anniversary, DCI Drum and Bugle Corps. I love you guys. I can't wait to have you guys on September 17th with Remo. That's it for our show. We'll see you next week. If you see someone without a smile, please give them one of yours.
Stay safe.
You're listening to Movie Reviews and More with Brian Sebastian, only on LA Talk Radio.